That's why we're going live.
You're live.
We have,
I have to leave at 4.
well, I have to be done by 3:45. That's why we're doing this now.
Great.
This is Senate, and House, Conference Committee on the T-bill. And we are here to further our conversations from this morning about where we are. I did see that you took the language from the not the mileage base. You combined the language from
It did.
the JTOC, and where is that?
So that is in section 4. You'll see all the yellow bits there are the new language where I've smushed the mileage-based user fee into that update section. So it's just one section now.
I think it's a blank section.
That's because I don't know what section is going to actually amend those sections yet.
Okay.
And I did realize actually in the Senate version that passed, it still was referring to section 12, which was the House version. So I blanked it out so I don't make that mistake again.
I think unless you did editorializing.
I did not. So I tried to make things as short as possible. And basically just took the language. 5 and 6 are just splitting up the two items that were in the updates in section 20. And then the little bit of language change up at the top is to add mileage-based user fee to the title. And then just do a simple summary of what is being asked.
Oh, can I work with them?
Yep, section 4, NA/4.
No, this.
Hash section is now highlighted in green, saying agree to Senate language. So,
Yeah, every time we do that, it shrinks the length of this.
yeah. So if you go to the second page, Yeah.
So Senator Westman had asked at our last meeting to loop together the section around mileage-based user fee into section 4. And I don't think it's a real change to any, it's just trying to make sure that when we get that report, it's all including those.
we have 2 reports that were due on the same days. Or 2 sets of updates that were due on the exact same days. And so this is just combining them in
And
one
both
section.
dealing with loss of federal funds.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
revenue or federal funds.
Yeah, they're tied together. So
What do you think?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah,
Okay,
you're all.
that's done. We'll shrink that out.
That is.
We kind of skipped over 2A and 3.
those are still open. 2A and 3 are still open here. That's the pilot fund, which is tied up in the budget negotiations, although I think it is in right
It
now
is-
tentatively.
That is in the big bill and has been agreed to.
Yep. And then
So-
okay,
Money is coming off. And
As long as we agree to the policy, then we'll be fine. And if we don't, then we'll go to the bottom line.
it'll go to the bottom line and you won't answer it.
Yeah.
yeah,
But you almost don't need 3 anyways, because there's $500,000 more than what we spent in
Yeah.
policy.
yeah, so I would note with,
Then we'll go out and get more pilot money to bring it up. Go ahead.
yeah, I guess it would go, so if you don't do this language with the pilot funding agreement in place in the budget, you would be putting 1.15 back onto the T fund. And then the pilot money would be appropriated but not authorized for use for this purpose. So it would sit there and then it has reversion language, which sends it back to the pilot fund if it's not spent. So What, at this point, with the budget agreed to, you could disagree on policy, but what it'll result in doing is just putting additional pressure on the T fund without that pilot money can't be used for anything else under the budget language. So it's appropriated for this purpose and otherwise.
Well, 600.
No, the 1.15 pilot fund is
That's
appropriated
all
for
that.
non-federal disasters. And the way I drafted that language for the budget, it can only be used for that purpose and cannot be put into the T fund or used for any other transportation purposes. And if it's unspent, it reverts to the pilot fund.
So basically you wiped out that program, so I think we're fine
Yeah,
with that. It's about where they expend money. They just clean the money or wash it.
Oh, is that program not gonna appear in a line item when you know,
It-
we have
it's-
all the town
so
programs?
this, your current transportation program is using 1.15 of T fund. And if you don't change that, what happens is you're drawing down additional T fund or you're authorizing expenditure of additional T fund dollars, but you're not utilizing any of this pilot fund money, which has already been appropriated or is being appropriated. So, you don't solve the pressures on or address the pressures on the T fund that the pilot fund transfer was there to do. And that pilot fund money can't be used for anything
Okay.
except this. This is,
So I think
So we need to.
Yeah.
we have to agree to it, and then if the policy, we don't agree to it, then it goes to the bottom line. But we have to agree to step one first. To swap it out, and once it gets
Yeah,
swapped
We can
out,
keep it open.
if we agree to it,
even if you swap it out, it won't go to the bottom line.
why wouldn't it?
Because the language in the budget says that it can only be used for this program.
So for the,
You got
so
the other-
let's say yes,
So I'm talking about this.
Oh, okay, so it goes to the bottom line on that.
and then if
Yeah.
you say no later, it just sits there and then eventually goes back. That's what you're gonna pick.
I'm saying is that they budgeted the one, they're gonna need that for line, they're gonna expend that,
Right,
that program.
assuming we have small non-federal disasters this year.
I'm assuming that they're gonna utilize all that money in that program. So we backed out that money that was originally put in there that falls to the bottom line. Potentially fall to the bottom line if we don't agree to the other things in the DMA bill.
There you go, yes, now I'm following. All right, I was,
Might agree to the other.
Yeah.
Oh, I like. this.
So I think that is a yes.
Thing.
We're a yes to 2A.
Yay.
That's what.
Yeah.
I would,
right. Unobligated T fund still open,
Yeah.
okay. All right, the 10G reports,
We're for language, we're all back in, as it was.
and
so you're
Well, they
proposing
have
to
to
pick
do
out
them all.
both sections.
They gotta do them all next year.
let me ask this. How are you on, the language for to get to a better place, for the municipalities and what there is?
Would that be,
Is this
so you're
section?
talking about section 15 and 16 or?
Within 16, well, 16, 17 are municipalities. 15, I guess they're all municipalities, locally managed projects.
Yep.
Municipal transportation funding needs, and then efficiencies in highway and grant programs.
Knowing that this is just a start and we totally expect that next year that we're all gonna be back here trying to, talk about this and push it along.
We just found out the cost of that.
Oh, yeah, well, what did we end up finding out the cost of those 15, 16?
For all of it.
$2,000 for all four programs,
How much?
$150.
150 or 616,
Oh,
which seems very low. to
yeah,
us, but
that's,
we queried Patrick about it and he stood firm.
wow, okay, that's great news.
So they can absorb that in there.
Yeah, we, we didn't have any opposition from
Okay.
the agency around this.
Yeah.
Like they proposed the language.
So,
They should do that and a 10G, the way you wanted it in.
Yeah, and an amendment that we talked about is the, what do you call it, the board,
The dashboard?
the dashboard,
Yeah.
to leave that out. I think that was a compromise on AOT's part to not do both, and I don't think they want to be stuck with both. So I would recommend removing the dashboard and keeping in the thing.
Which section, which?
So it's 5
Yeah.
index.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think the, AOT would be appreciative of that.
this dashboard is shiny bells.
Yeah, well, I'll just say, we did hear some very compelling testimony from Jeremy Reed about the other dashboards that existed in other states that were effective in project tracking, but
And-
but I don't want,
Yeah, are they going to continue to develop the dashboard without this language?
yeah, I guess that would be.
Because Jeremy,
Yeah,
it was, I'm not wed to the dashboard.
I'm not either. I'm just relaying.
What I would say to you is, I took it from the testimony I heard that they were working on the dashboard and working in that direction. That was meant to reflect that they might already be working in that direction. I don't want to tell them no if they want to do it. But
Well, they could do anything they want. It's not, I mean, they can still present it. The language is not in there. I'm not wet on it. I was just trying to think they were doing this as a compromise. So,
Yeah.
okay.
and now we're doing away with the compromise, so they're gonna get stuck with both, but if that's the way you want it, then.
No,
That's the way I,
so what was your memory of what Jeremy said in here about, the dashboard that they were developing?
Just, we talked about this in other states having those great dashboards, but yeah, the goal was to try to do more on the dashboard. That's kind of.
If we did away with the dashboard, and we brought back 10G and they took our language on the municipal, collecting all the information and getting to a better place, how would you feel?
That sounds like good.
Think you got a deal?
All right.
We're in check 5,
Okay, so
6.
5 is going away. And 10G is staying. 10G reports are staying.
Yeah.
Right,
We're taking out. And back.
you guys, how did your reports? You really fought for them. I hope you
15,
think
16.
It started with being our Senator Ritchie back in the day, but I'm surprised that I just to see that come our way. You know, I was like, yeah, we fought tooth and nail for that.
Okay. And then we're going with the Senate language on 15, 16, 17.
Yep.
It's gonna be a very short side by side.
Bargain price on that.
First
The
ever
amount of work there.
I know.
We're just working on this.
You gotta,
Yeah, we found out.
we're gonna send you out to negotiate the next contracts with that level of pricing on those.
So,
I feel like using a line from the late Senator Mazza. We're giving away the house here. With all the green.
Look at all the green. Well, they certainly started with more.
To be fair, things where you guys were exactly the same are also in green. Green just means we're good to go. I know one chamber's colors are green, but
Thank you for,
you know, red doesn't show up. Well, it does, but it looks, I don't know, it looks negative.
What's your biases up there?
the brings.
I guess I wore a greenish tie. I'll wear red tomorrow.
Right.
So that.
all the way to 19.
Probably is fine.
Yeah, 19, which is the EMBA intent language.
One thing I wonder, Chair Walker, is if it helped at all to make it clear, and two, that it would only be if you were gonna get rid of the gas tax. So you're not paying both.
Right.
And it seemed like your concerns about people paying the MBUF but not using the roads or traveling out of state would be the same for the gas tax. Like you could buy gas here and drive in New Hampshire, or you could buy gas here and drive in your, back 40 and still be paying a tax that you're not.
Still, if
But
the EVs are now gonna have to start paying $250 a
from the
year
feds,
to sort of make up the federal gas tax, but it's more than making it up.
Yeah, that makes me even more comfortable with that first section where we took out on our side the federal government and just made it state.
the Fed taxes are going. Fed. I would agree with the House if we got the Fed tax money, but since we don't, then it seemed weird that we would try to
And we're
collect
doing the
the
work. Yeah. Feds are gonna make us do the work to collect their money. Which is like, okay, can you pay me for that too?
Yeah,
How much percentage of that you get to keep?
yeah.
We did, I think, like 2 million was what I think we heard we were gonna get for it.
For the miles base?
For
If we
the,
collect their 250.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah,
know what?
yeah.
the EV fee you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's what,
And that's all speculation, man. I
Yeah.
imagine that 250 is gonna probably rank down a little bit, time passes, but, I agree with Senator Kurzweil is that if we added, when the gas tax is totally eliminated for the miles base, just to clear, that
Right.
people don't think they're gonna be.
Not gonna be
But
paying
once the
twice.
gas tax is totally eliminated, then, massage the language like.
None of us will be around to see the day that the
Yeah.
gas tax.
That's not mine.
Yeah,
That's not mine.
My-
Yeah, that's all.
I also like, I don't know if other people did, but like having the thinking about referencing that it should be eventually applied to all vehicles.
Yeah, and we could even say like at that last line, the mileage-based user fee to all motor vehicles while reducing the gas tax or to gradually eliminate the gas and diesel tax, the gas tax. Yeah, that's like
Transitioning.
Yeah, in transition. Oh, or like expanding or transitioning away from. Yeah,
I think that's so.
Why do you think it's so important to-
I guess I would look to our lawyer, maybe.
What is it
offer-
about it that's so important to have it in here?
Because I think it is not first of all, it's not what the agency has been telling us. The agency has been very clear that the EV side is the start and the long-term goal is to have every vehicle be covered under the MBUF. So we already know that that's the goal. So I think it's important for folks who are EV drivers to know that this isn't going to be a way of cost shifting all of our fuel revenue that's going down onto them having to raise it. I think that will cause a reaction among folks who drive electric
All
vehicles.
18,000 of us.
Yeah, and may limit people's interest if they think that the tax on a specific type of vehicle will be continued to be grown and levied.
And you're saying that this intent helps them understand that all vehicles are eventually going to be treated that way?
Yeah, I would make sure.
Once the gas tax is eliminated.
Yeah.
I totally
Well,
agree with
I
that.
don't see any reason not to say that. I mean,
Well, once eliminated, yes.
Well, I said I was
Not gradually,
Yeah.
once eliminated.
Damien,
So
are you following?
I think what I'm hearing, assuming there's agreement on this, because it's a little bit hard to tell, is that it would read, and that the mileage-based user fee for BEV pleasure cars will be an interim step towards gradually expanding the mileage-based user fee to all motor vehicles upon elimination of the state fuel taxes.
Yeah, that's,
It's sort of commiserate. If one's expanding, the other one is lessening.
Yeah.
Commiserate with the reduction.
Yeah.
And then it's clear
Or-
to people reading
yeah.
that, what's the plan? This is the plan.
good
Are
suggestion
we
there.
good with that?
I don't know.
I'm
I
sure.
always see it in writing and, you know.
Okay, let's go,
put a
right.
soft check.
We'll see it right.
Are you okay with the general improving changes in the paragraph before?
Oh, with the federal.
Average and fuel instead of gas and all that stuff.
Did we get a chance to talk to Phil? Oh, we did,
Fuel because it includes diesel.
well, he had some issues with the average, so I would just leave it on. I mean, I think we might be on with some.
We're gonna hold this
Yeah.
until we see new
Yeah, yeah.
language in this.
That's as much of the work you thought you were gonna get done today, look at that.
We got 5 minutes more.
There you go.
All right, so we've got demand response, transportation and legal trails left. Oh, and there's modified language down in the ultra low volume vehicles, so maybe you can read that and close that section.
Other states, that's more than-
Yeah,
that's the one, right?
that is 31.
Is it option? Where we have the modified language or?
It's
Yeah.
Incorporated in
page.
in
It's
the
yellow.
yellow.
There it is. That's it. It's the only change.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Looking at it, figure out a way that you wanna, make it flop. Get cars, the model cars, and it's built from scratch.
Well, we got a company.
It's not even making a policy, it's asking them to study it and come back with information.
Right, and well, they've gotta have a way to get a VIN number on these cars.
And
Yeah.
that's what you're asking them to do, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
You know, we're
Okay with it?
we're
There you
asking
go. Get
this
another,
company.
get another check
We got another check.
and a whole bunch more green, a whole bunch more green.
All right.
So we're down
Well,
to,
It's gonna be awfully hard to get any red if you already said yes to all of our red. I don't think you took any red out.
hey, I think we've said a bunch of reds.
There-
You started so
You said
well.
yes to all the red already, right?
Yes, we did.
Now you know for next year, you want to put more in your bill.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Putting more in is where we run into most of our troubles.
So we are down to trails.
Mm.
Railway leases
Transit.
and
Really? Sounds awful.
What was the public?
it's the NEMA language.
Yeah. that's-
Yeah. Trails, railway leases, the diva language. Or the non-emergency
So just-
transports.
Repeat for Senator Perchlick, the way we drafted the language that went into the big bill.
So the big bill language on pilot funds is set up. So that it can only be used for the or the town highway non-federal disaster program.
Yeah.
It cannot be deposited into the transportation fund if it's unspent, instead it reverts back to the pilot fund.
Right.
So, and then the 1.15 from the T fund that had been in there goes to the bottom line of the T fund and can be spent on other things, which is, I think that's what we discussed, right?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So right now we have agreement on the pilot fund language. We have agreement on the funding updates with the combination of what was sections 4 and 20 in the Senate bill. We have removal of the 210G sections. So those are coming out. So I'm marking them red.
Dashboard, yeah.
And then
Make sure we're clear when you're deleting.
He's
your dashboard.
giving you our dashboard now.
And the dashboard.
the locally managed projects, municipal transportation assets, and state town highway aid and municipal grants. Reports are all agreed to. We are making amendments to the intent language for the MBUF. And that'll be looked at the next time we meet. We're still open on Diva, still open on, we've agreed to ultra low volume vehicles with the modification. we're still open on railway leases, and then we're still open on legal trails.
I have a couple of questions on a couple of those pieces.
Okay,
On the railroad leases, I noticed that section was pulled out for an effective date of upon passage.
Oh,
Oh my God. Railroads move awfully slow and these leases are incredibly long.
yeah,
What's the rush of, like, what are we, is there something? Did you take some testimony in some way that there is a lease in current negotiation? Because I asked for the documentation from the legislative council and they provided a chart, which I'm not sure did or didn't get shared here. There's 4 leases and the next renewable date isn't until 2030. Like, we got at least a half a dozen or 5 years before we even touch one. And that's already got a pre-negotiated 10-year renewal that's almost automatic inside of it. So I guess I'm, from the testimony that we've taken and the stuff that I've asked for research to get prepared for this, I'm missing something. Like, what, I understand very much on the language, like as an example in the miscellaneous motor vehicles law that an effective passage right now and something that's going on makes sense to me, but this is railroads. They have 100 years going on here. What's the hurry?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, it had to do with the subleases to try to get potential utilities to, I don't know if it was that angle, it's
I
not.
think there is part of.
It's maybe
that
get
was
the ball,
part of the discussion.
Okay.
the ball rolling. Not saying I disagree with it, but maybe that was part of the rationale, is trying to sit
I
around.
would say
others.
Senator Harrison in particular on
Yeah.
our committee had some very strong experiential understanding of why you would want to have insight into railroad leases, and that was why our committee felt that we should include it.
I can't remember discussion on that upon passage.
This seems-
Yeah,
I
that-
don't either.
The whole thing just seems like,
Yeah.
we spent a huge amount of time on the committee last year, and Chair CoC, spent a ton of time and work to make it happen. So that one it just seemed odd. It was singled out as a upon passage, but I also wanted to just kind of ask, and what we're gonna look at before we meet again, the trails, legal trails. It seems sort of like, and you guys have spent a lot more time on it, so I'm we had a briefing, and obviously since we took the briefing, the email boxes.
Oh, yeah, now you're getting into
But
it.
it sort of seems like we can do nothing, or we can put language in that's immediate, or perhaps because of this trail, we could also potentially put language in that would be effective, giving it, we'll all be back next year. I think somebody mentioned earlier, that might give time for this court case to be settled. So I was just throwing that out. I know we're not going to decide it right now, but that might be something that I'm going to research a little bit more on. Is there some other option?
So it's another, like the effective date.
If you push out the effective date as a possible option from perhaps doing nothing to keeping it in as it is, to perhaps, when I was looking at the effective dates, that's where I ran across I didn't realize the railroad was separate. Why?
Right, yeah.
But then I was saying, well, maybe the railroad, the trails thing, there's another option. I know we weren't going to be able to settle all of them today, but those are something I guess I'm throwing out as potential solutions that we could talk about and come back to.
I would say that the legal trails language is of reasonable importance to our committee. We heard testimony from the litigant in the court case. We heard from him quite a bit, from Tom Bridge. We also heard from many of those stakeholder groups who maintain trails. And what we heard was the timeline of the court case is, we don't know how long the court case will take. And it's not against the philosophical perspective of the legislature to clarify law, even if there is a court case. We aren't beholden to what the courts are doing in advance of them making a decision. You get what I'm saying? And we don't have like a rule against doing things like that. But what we heard from our constituents, or at least I personally did, was that the season of trail maintenance is at risk if we don't clarify the law, where there are miles of trail that may not be maintained because the municipalities, the local organizations like the Woodstock Mountain Bike Association may not feel comfortable with maintaining trails without us clarifying the law this season. And that would have a very serious detriment to our local economy and tourism, at least in my area, if people did not have some clarity on this. And I know that especially our legal counsel has been so good on this to try to explain kind of the spectrum of risk we're taking by clarifying the law. But I personally land on we should do this, and it isn't the full S4 bill which we received. But I don't want to speak too much more for the committee.
I would think it would be good for you to go back to your committee and take some testimony.
Yeah.
And then, here, we took extensive testimony from a number of different areas, and, Damien and Tucker both, are the legal counsel, our legal counsel that they've spent a lot of time on it. So I think that would be important. I will say to you that on the Medicaid piece, I did call the commissioner of Diva, and I'm meeting with Diva in the morning to push them and see if I can get them to give us some language that would be more acceptable to all of the players involved, so we not have to work out something at this table. And I don't need to push, but
Okay.
the two of us,
Okay.
the two of us are about 4 minutes
All righty. We're
from
good.
meeting again.
Thank you very much for hosting.
First meeting again
Thank you.
tomorrow,
meeting again.
What time,
8:30 and 11:30 in the prep.
Well, should we meet tomorrow? I mean, because I think it's down to us taking testimony.
Oh, yeah, you guys need to hear
I
from.
mean, we didn't hear a lot of the trails. Everything else is, we haven't heard anything about, so I don't know if we're gonna have.
So-
So it'd only if we had new NEPA language.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
can,
go Friday.
can we do 1 o'clock? Can that give you the morning?
We're on the floor at 1. So we're
Oh, yeah, we're on the floor.
Do you wanna, can 12:30 and we just touch base?
Yeah, we could touch base, but like I said, outside of the Diva language,
Really?
we need time to.
Right.
We need to-
Well, we could also do the end of the day tonight,
Okay.
and that would give you all day to take some testimony.
Then maybe you can write up the NEPA language, whatever.
Like
Yeah.
4 o'clock.
You wanna drive, Paul? And
Or-
then if we aren't done, we've got, cause
See
we
how
are
that
done.
floor works, and we'll try to say that through. You said, what time did you say the other one was?
3:30?
Oh, you're at what time? 10 and 1, 10 and something?
8:30 and 11.
Oh, so you're
For
after
now,
potentially the afternoon, so 3 o'clock. Yep. See how
but
it
you
goes.
have.
You wanna do-
one.
Would you
Right.
rather do
Well, it
3?
was pretty short today, but if
Okay.
you, I hear in the Senate, they don't take 25 minutes of announcements. We had
No, we don't.
a 32
Why don't-
floor session with 25 minutes.
So you said-
So